Oh shoot, I'm on. Okay, cool. Alright, I'm gonna continue with my top 15 best players at each position. I did my quarterbacks in a separate video, so check that out. That video is pretty good. It shows you my best quarterbacks going forward. Not necessarily this week. Some of the quarterbacks were on bye, and I still have them in the top 15. So that's moving forward. It's the same thing with all these positions. These are just who I predict is gonna be the most efficient, most get you the most fantasy points moving forward in these next weeks. So I tried to compile the best teams with the best quarterbacks, the best defense, the best offensive systems, and I just figured even if no matter what their schedule is, if they're the best teams in the league, they're going to be the most consistent, score the most points week in, week out. Just because the talent for the top 6 teams, that are going to be in the NFC and AFC championship, those are really the teams that I'm focusing on. The teams that have the best chance to make it up there are going to be the ones that you want to target now, because they're going to play the best going into the playoffs, so they're going to get you the most points. So with that being said, I'm going to go into wide receivers, and I just made this list. I got no cards here. I got number 15 starting off. You can't even see it, but it's for me to read, but you can hear my voice clearly, so I'm going to just start off. 15. We got Robbie Anderson. He's got 483 yards and 4 touchdowns, and they're targeting him a lot. He's a rookie. He's really tall. He's really fast. I think he's going to be a real good wide receiver in the future. And this year, he's just decent. You still got to see how good the Jets are going to be. They just beat Buffalo, and Robbie Anderson had a good game. So I'm thinking that they're going to be pretty good moving forward. I like Josh McCown. He played really good. Yesterday, he had 27 fantasy points. And Robbie Anderson, I bet you could probably pick him off some waiver wires. And he's number 15 overall on my list. So, great wide receiver. He should not be in the waiver wire, on anybody's waiver wire next week. Okay, 14. Golden Tate. Okay. Matthew Stafford, he threw for 423 yards last week against the Steelers. There was no touchdowns. They got really close a lot of times, but they had to just kick it. They were getting stopped in the red zone. So my prediction is that Matthew Stafford is only going to get better moving forward. He's going to put up a lot of yardage. So he's going to feed his targets the most. They're going to have the most opportunities. Matthew Stafford's a good quarterback. He's not the best, but he does put up a lot of yards, and that's big opportunities for a lot of fantasy points. So I got Golden Tate at number 14. Right now, he has 449 yards and 2 touchdowns. Number 13. Nelson Aguilar. He has 392 yards and 5 touchdowns. He's a rookie. He still needs to improve. He doesn't have the best hands, but he's really emerging as the number 1 wide receiver there. Alshon Jeffrey has been nothing really. He only has I've seen his stats. They're only 5-6 points a game. He's had maybe 1 or 2 good games. So I like Nelson Aguilar going forward. They're going to want to get him more involved. I would throw more to him because, like, it just seems like the younger receivers are more talented. You know, we're getting into that generation where the athletic ability is just stepping up a level. It's, you know, we see these crazy athletes coming out of nowhere. So the younger players are going to be the most explosive coming onto the scene and probably get you the most points compared to, like, the veterans. Like, you know, I don't really like the older players. Like, they're consistent, but they're not going to win you your league. So you're always going to want to look for sleepers. You're always going to want to look for, like, players, rookies who are going to blow up during the year. Okay, so that's number 13, Nelson Aguilar. Number 12, Dez Bryant. He's having a pretty mediocre year. He's got 366 yards with 4 touchdowns. That's through 9 weeks, and they've had their bye week already, so that's 8 games. You really expect more from him. He's their Cowboys' number 1 receiver. They use Zeke a lot. He's at number 12, though, because he has upside moving forward with Zeke and his pending suspension, which I'm sure is going to happen within these next 3 weeks. You just have to keep a watch on that. So Dez Bryant, his stock goes up with or without Zeke, more so without Zeke in the lineup. Start Dez Bryant against Kansas City. Number 11. This is somebody I picked up off the waiver wire a couple weeks back. I was thinking in my head, like, I need a receiver. I need a wide receiver who has a good quarterback, is on a good team with a good defense. And I was looking at the waiver wire, and I see, you know, I can't even remember who I saw. Like, they didn't really stick out to me. I think I saw, like, Mohamed Sanu. I saw Robbie Anderson at the time, but he was still, like, kind of not really doing well. He was getting a lot of looks, but he wasn't really dominating or doing as good as he did these past few games. But I saw Juju Smith-Schuster, and I had to play a wide receiver last week. I needed one. I was like, my other wide receivers, I traded for running backs, and I just picked up a wide receiver off waivers, and then another one of my receivers was on bye, so I was kind of like, I just got to play somebody. So I played Juju, and he went off, you know. Even though Antonio Brown had a good game, too. He had, like, a really big gain. But it was in the midst of, like, Martavis Bryant was, like, done with the Steelers. He's like, he wants to be traded. So I just took Juju, and I said, he's the next one on the line to be that number 2, the clear number 2 wide receiver. And I'm glad I picked him up. So if you can still get him or trade for him, I would trade for him. You know, if someone's selling low, which they probably aren't after this past week, I would trade for him. But he's going to be a start moving forward, clear number 2. And he's at number 11 overall. Okay. Number 10, Michael Crabtree. He has 411 yards, 6 touchdowns. You can play him this week against Miami. At Miami, I would play Crabtree and Amari Cooper. With Derek Carr back, and he's performing well. People need to remember that Derek Carr was an MVP candidate last year. And, you know, he injured his back, and he's come back, and he had like a good game when he first got back, and then he had a bad game against a good team, and then they beat the Chiefs. And so I like Derek Carr moving forward. I think he's going to propel that offense. I think he's going to propel Jared Cook, Crabtree, you know. Maybe their running game a little bit, but their running game's pretty bad. they need to maybe bench Marshawn. So Michael Crabtree at number 10. Number 9, I got Brandon Cooks. He has 563 yards, 3 touchdowns. He's on a bye week. He has the best quarterback in the game on his team. It's his first year with the Patriots, so I would have him lower. He's at number 9, but since it's his first year, I'm giving more upside to like Chris Hogan and Gronkowski. And that's because I have Brandon Cooks ranked higher than Chris Hogan. But the reason I'm giving more upside to Chris Hogan is because like he's just been on the Patriots longer. So Brandon Cooks kind of gets I'm kind of dissing him a little bit because it's just 1 year. I don't know if he was really good with Drew Brees, but you know, Tom Brady, he will throw he's not going to just favor one receiver, especially a wide receiver. He favors Gronk in that offense, and then the wide receivers are pretty much the second options. So the wide receivers on the New England Patriots, they're going to be good, but they'll only explode if Tom Brady dominates. And he's not really dominating. He's dominating by getting the wins, but they're like narrow, close wins. So, you know, most of the touchdowns are going to go to Gronkowski, or, you know, they'll use their running backs just to push it in, because they really like to use their running backs. And I'm guessing since they have so many running backs, good running backs too, they're going to get most of the goal line touches. And, you know, that's just how it is. So Brandon Cooks at number 9. Number 8, we got Mike Evans. He's a beast. He's got great hands. He's a great wide receiver. He can really get down the field. He's got 519 yards and 4 touchdowns. My only concern is that Jameis Winston is playing really bad right now. But if the Buccaneers want to get back into playoff contention, you know, to even get into the hunt, they're going to have to win. So they're the type of team that has, like, you know, a chip on their shoulder, that they're going to have to get over that and just start winning games. And if you want to win games, you know, your best wide receiver is going to be, you have to try to get him involved, and he has to be involved consistently in the offense in order for things to get moving. If you just rely on the running game, you're going to get stopped, and your running back's going to get tired. Your line's going to start getting tired. But those long passes are what really, they're just game changers, you know. You really just have to have someone you can throw the ball all the way downfield and score a touchdown, you know. That's just, and I think Mike Evans is that guy for Tampa Bay. So Mike Evans, his stock is going up moving forward. He's at number 8. Number 7, we got Adam Thielen. This guy is crazy good. He has the best hands. He has 627 yards and 1 touchdown. I like Adam Thielen because he's developed a really good relationship and good production with Case Keenum as quarterback for the Vikings. And I like Case Keenum playing for the Vikings because he's a good quarterback. He was underrated. He played for Houston, and he moved that offense like crazy. You know, they were ranked like number 10 in the nation, and that's because Houston was horrible the year before that. And I'm from Texas, so, you know, that year, I saw Houston playing college football, and I was like, this guy, Case Keenum, who is this guy? Like, is he really for real? And then he gets drafted, and I wasn't so sure about him, but now in his it's like his third year, he's pretty good. You know, you see these quarterbacks who are, you know, they don't go to the biggest college. They just kind of perform well, and they can translate to the NFL game. So I like Case Keenum. He's not going to get you a lot of points in fantasy, but he's going to help the Vikings win games. So Adam Thielen, he's on a bye this week. He's number 7. Number 6, Amari Cooper. This guy was the most ill-affected by Derek Carr not being able to play. He is a stud receiver. He's a clear number 1. If Derek Carr stays healthy all season, you know, he's a must-start every week. So I don't see any reason you would have doubts in him based on the performance of his season so far. So Amari Cooper, the game that he put up against Kansas City, that was probably his best game, but you're going to see games that are similar to it. Maybe not so much of a point explosion, but he's going to have that big yard play ability that you're looking for in your number 1 wide receiver. So they got Miami. I'm starting him. He's got 404 yards and 3 touchdowns this season. He's number 6. Number 5. This is going to surprise some of y'all. But this is who I believe is the number 1 wide receiver. And he isn't the clear number 1 yet, but the opportunities that he's had, he's taken the most advantage of them, and he's been the most productive on this squad. I'm going to go ahead and say his name, Paul Richardson. He's got 374 yards and 5 touchdowns. If you saw this guy against the Texans, you can clearly see that he should be getting as many targets as Doug Baldwin is getting. Now, that's not a stab at Doug Baldwin. He's a really good wide receiver. He's a must-start every week. Also, I think he's a number 2 or a really good flex position. But Paul Richardson, he's going to be their number 1 moving forward. He's taller. He looks more athletic. I don't know if he's faster, but he can probably get up higher in the air than Doug Baldwin can. And Russell Wilson, he can throw to any wide receiver. He's going to throw the ball in the perfect spot. He's going to get you so early that you don't really even have to, find your way to the ball. It's going to just come to you. So, Paul Richardson with the breadbasket giver, Russell Wilson. Paul Richardson, number 5. Okay, number 4. Michael Thomas. I like Michael Thomas. He has 480 yards, 2 touchdowns. He's with Drew Brees. Now, Drew Brees, lately he's been handing off the ball and, passing to Alvin Kamara. But what people don't expect is that the Saints consider themselves elite. Their defense is really good. They really get after the quarterback. Their pass rush is decent and their coverage is okay. They get interceptions. They have a rookie. I forgot his name, but he's like defensive player of the year candidate. So I like even if Drew Brees isn't like Drew Brees of 4 or 5 years ago, he's still Drew Brees, and he can still throw the ball downfield. He can still put up 300 yards, and he's gonna have to in these big games coming up this second half of the season. And I like Michael Thomas moving forward. He's gonna I like him more than Ted Ginn. I know everybody's up on Ted Ginn, but Ted Ginn's like at best a flex play. Like he just has good hands. He looks fast, but I'm gonna consider him more of an aberration so far. So Michael Thomas, number 4. Number 3, Julio Jones. He's got 540 yards and 1 touchdown. He has really big upside and really big downside. The Falcons, what they are missing is their offensive coordinator, Sean McVay. He went over to the Rams, and now their offense is moving like crazy. But don't sleep on the Falcons. The Falcons still have a good defense. They still got Matt Ryan, who is a proven quarterback. You know, he's not an MVP candidate this year, but he can still play the quarterback position. They still got good running backs, great running backs that can spread the field, put pressure on those defensive backs so that they either are forced to rush or are forced to back up. And that's going to open up the receiving game for Drew Brees eventually. You know, he's going to throw a strike downfield, and he's good at it, so why not? Oh, I'm sorry, Matt Ryan. Matt Ryan can still throw a strike downfield. And who else do you want trying to catch the ball than Julio Jones? You know, like, if he's on a really good team, he might be the best receiver in the league. You know, he's just not on the best team playing right now. But the Falcons could get better. They went to the Super Bowl last year, and they lost to Tom Brady. So let's give them a little more credit than what their season and their record says right now. And they came off a win just last week, so it was an ugly win, but a win is a win, and that is going to just give more upside to the team going into the next week. And the Falcons got Carolina, and I like Julio Jones at Carolina. Number 3, Julio Jones. Number 2, AJ Green. 572 yards, 4 touchdowns. He's at Jacksonville. The reason I have AJ Green so high at number 2 is because he's another one of those receivers that is like, if he was just on a better team with a better quarterback, he'd probably be considered the best wide receiver in the league. You know, put him on anybody other than Andy Dalton, anyone better than Andy Dalton, and AJ Green is immediately, like, he would probably lead the league, like, in yardage. This guy's like a freak. You know, he's just one of those guys that you can start even with Andy Dalton at quarterback. So imagine just having a better quarterback. How good is he really? And then the second half of the season, the Bengals are still in the hunt, you know, for playoff contention. So expect AJ Green to just go off. You know, expect these receivers to improve as the season progresses. That's what these athletes do. They're in the NFL for a reason. So play the best players in the league. Play them. You know, just don't worry too much about their, especially guys like AJ Green. You know, there's other players like T.Y. Hilton who are just on a really bad team, and their fantasy production is stifled because they just don't have anybody that can throw the ball downfield. Luckily, AJ Green's still with a decent quarterback, not the best, but middle of the pack, can throw the ball, can take care of it, and has had good years where he's considered, you know, a top quarterback. So there's a lot of upside with AJ Green. They have a decent team. Their running game, they're still working on their running game. But that's probably better for AJ Green, if anything. Joe Mixon fumbles the ball. Maybe they cut his carries and they give more looks to AJ Green. I think that would be a good combination. Having Joe Mixon in the backfield, and then they also got Tyler Kroft, their tight end, and then having a wide receiver. So that you have 3 stars right there that can make a playoff push, a playoff run. And I like AJ Green in the regular season for your fantasy team. Number 2. Finally, number 1. Now, this he's crazy. He's the most confident and the most competent. He's really cocky, but he backs it up. The player, he's like an Odell Beckham. He's really talks a lot of trash, has a big mouth, but then when they're on the field, he backs it up. Odell, maybe not always, but he's young. This guy's proven. Antonio Brown. He has 3 touchdowns. He's already going to get like 1,000 yards. He has 835. He could get 1,000 yards this next game. Well, maybe not this next game. But I wouldn't be surprised if he did. They're on bye this week, but I got Antonio Brown, number 1 wide receiver, moving forward. Okay, that's it for wide receivers. Let me tell you some honorable mentions for wide receivers. Okay, we got Jordy Nelson, Ted Ginn, Stephon Diggs, Devin Funchess, Corey Davis, Devontae Adams, Larry Fitzgerald, Robert Woods, D.D. Westbrook, Josh Gordon, Keenan Allen, and Devontae Parker. Also Jarvis Landry. Those are all other wide receivers that I would feel comfortable playing in your flex or as a number 2 receiver, but they don't have as much upside moving forward as the ones that I've listed in my top 15. Okay, now running backs. Let's go to running backs. Before I go into running backs, I'm going to put honorable mentions for quarterbacks. I said my top 15 in the other video, but I had to cut it short. So let me just say my honorable mentions. You could go watch that video and see the top 15 quarterbacks moving forward. But here's some other quarterbacks that I left out, but I think that if you put them in your lineup, they have more upside moving forward than down. Marcus Mariota, Andy Dalton, Jimmy Garoppolo, Jared Goff, Brock Osweiler, Joe Flacco, and Ryan Mallett. Cherry limeade, it's pretty good. Okay, running backs. I'm gonna start at 15, and I already know who this is. I'm playing him this week. He's gonna be my premier back of the week, and I really like him a lot. And I actually think that he should be lower. It's just that he doesn't have enough. He hasn't had the workload to prove that he can be that number 1 guy, except for one game where he was given the workload and he was that number 1 guy. So moving forward, lots of upside. Number 15, Alex Collins. He's got 478 yards, 30 receiving, and he's at Tennessee. I'm playing him this week. You should too. 14, C.J. Anderson. He's got 469 yards, 1 rushing touchdown, 91 receiving yards, 1 receiving touchdown. He's at Philadelphia. Now, the only caution I would have is that their quarterback play has been horrendous. Trevor Siemian is a fail. He's not going to play anymore for the rest of the season unless Brock Osweiler, is just worse. And Brock Osweiler isn't that good. But he's played with the Broncos before. He's already had one season under his belt to figure out the system. He's played with, some of these guys, Emmanuel Sanders, Demaryius Thomas. I think he can move the ball and this offense further down the field than Trevor Siemian. So I think that he's going to give the receivers Demaryius Thomas and Emmanuel Sanders more looks. And I do think he's going to be a better ball manager, which would increase C.J. Anderson's role and have more fantasy value moving forward. He's a good running back. Their team has just struggled, but they have a good defense. They're still a good team. They just need to play just a small amount. If just a small amount, they got a little bit better at the quarterback position, they're already a team that's 10 times better. So I'm giving him upside at number 14. Number 13, I got Doug Martin. Okay, back on. Sorry about that. So, C.J. Anderson, number 13. I'm sorry. I'm at number 13 right now. Doug Martin. He's got 247 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 54 receiving yards. They need to run the ball more. Tampa Bay needs to run the ball more. I would start him against the Saints this coming weekend because it's a must-win or their season's over. So I'm expecting a big game from Doug Martin. He's Doug Martin, so give him a chance. Their team's not that good. I don't think they're going to make playoffs. They have a good offense, but just a horrible defense. And Jameis Winston, he's not playing well. So maybe that's good for Doug Martin. Maybe not. Maybe, Jameis Winston says, I'm playing bad. Let me hand the ball off more to Doug Martin. So, Doug Martin, number 13. Number 12, Jordan Howard. He's got 662 yards, 4 touchdowns, 78 yards receiving. He's a cowbell for the Bears. So he's a must start. He's not a must start. He's a clear running back too, and he's a really good flex position play. He's a must start in like big leagues, 12 to 14 team leagues. But I like Jordan Howard. I think he's a good running back. He's really big. He looks explosive. And frankly, the Bears are underrated. They're underrated this year. And what helps him is that Mitchell Trubisky, they're not going to want to throw with him. They're going to just run. They're going to stick to the running game and throw as little as possible. So, Jordan Howard, good fantasy quarterback. Maybe not the most talented quarterback. Maybe not the most talented running back. in the top 15, but for fantasy, yes. Number 11, Chris Thompson. He's got 231 rushing yards, 2 touchdowns, 442 receiving yards, 3 touchdowns, 5 touchdowns total. They play Seattle. I like Chris Thompson a lot. He looks really fast and explosive, and he's a pass catching running back, but that fares well for a guy like Kirk Cousins, who likes to throw the ball, who likes to throw downfield, but if he can't, he will more than gladly hit Chris Thompson down there. So play him. He's a must start. He's their clear number 2 running back, but as far as I see it, he's like their third best option on offense. So Chris Thompson, number 11, making it pretty low for a number 2 running back. Number 10. This guy, I think he should be lower, but for some reason I have him at number 10. And maybe there's better running backs than this person, but it's Melvin Gordon, 526 yards, 4 touchdowns rushing, 235 yards receiving, and 4 touchdowns. So he has 8 touchdowns, and he is a versatile running back. He is the type of running back to play with a chip on his shoulder. If he hears people talking bad about him in the media or in the news, he'll just go off. He'll have 30 points in fantasy. He's going to get the goal line touches. He's going to get the receiving yards and the targets that you want from a fantasy running back. So Melvin Gordon must start. He's number 10. So we're getting into the running backs who you build your team off of. You want to have one of these guys if you're going to make a playoff run. One, if not 2. You need you're going to want 2 of these guys in the top 10 to win if you want to win your league. Okay, so I got number 9 coming up. Devontae Freeman. 466 yards rushing, 119 yards receiving, 5 touchdowns rushing. Devontae Freeman, I have not seen much of this year. I know he's a really good running back. I've seen him be super explosive in that offense. He's the clear number 1 running back alongside Tevin Coleman, who is easily a clear number 1 running back if he's on any other team that doesn't have Devontae Freeman on it. So Devontae Freeman is really, really, really good, and he is number 9. They play at Carolina. I'm playing him. Number 8, Lamar Miller. A lot of people like to hate on Lamar Miller. They think he's a fake cowbell. They don't think he's as good as he looks. But I think he's better than he looks. He is super fast. He's big. He's a good size. And he's been in the league he's already been in the league for a while. So, he's established his name. He's established himself. He's got 426 yards rushing, 2 touchdowns, and 194 receiving yards, 2 touchdowns. He was a good running back for the Texans even without Deshaun Watson on the team. Now, Deshaun Watson went down. We all know. I still believe Lamar Miller is going to have the same, if not better, production moving forward with the Texans. They are going to rely on their run game more so because Tom Savage is not going to be able to hit up those guys, Will Fuller and DeAndre Hopkins, as much. They're going to want to play more with ball security, more tentative, not looking for the long bomb. So Lamar Miller, he's a safe number 8 overall running back. It kind of sucks that Deshaun Watson is out, but it's just more upside for Lamar Miller moving forward as a running back. He's a clear number 2 running back. Number 7, Mark Ingram. 464 yards, 4 touchdowns, 190 yards, and they played Tampa Bay. Now, the head coach of the Saints doesn't really like Mark Ingram. But Mark Ingram is still getting the workload. And I think it's because the head coach, oh man, I'm sorry, I don't remember his name right now. And it's so obvious. It's such an obvious name. Sean Payton, okay? Sean Payton, he just looks like a tough coach. So Mark Ingram, he just needs to show his talents, you know. He's going to play better moving forward because he's going to listen to what Sean Payton has to say. And Sean Payton's a good coach. They have a really good team. So I really think that they can make some noise moving forward.